Well, good evening, Little Masters, and welcome to episode 248 of the Prancing Pony podcast, where we have no need of soft words. We know you do not hope to see us again on any other day under this sun.
Yeah, that's right. There's a reason we do this podcast as audio only.
Faces for radio, man.
Yeah, no one wants to see us on any day. But folks, go ahead and pull up a bench in the common room. I'm Sean Marchese, the Lord of the Mark, and I'm here with the Man of the West, who would gladly learn how this creeping Smeagol became possessed of the One Ring, Alan Sisto.
I do bet there's a story there, but I'm pretty sure we covered that back in season 3. Now, just because Faramir doesn't know, doesn't mean I don't know. But,
sure.
All right, we'll sort that out later, folks. Right now, we are about to introduce a guest that we are really thrilled to be welcoming to the show.
We are, but first, for those of you joining us for the first time, welcome. Here at the Prancing Pony podcast, we are reading and talking our way through Tolkien's stories of Middle-earth, a few pages at a time.
Usually, but a few times a season, we take a break from the books to do what we're doing here today, sharing a conversation with a guest. And he's one you're going to love hearing from, folks, a person who's done so much for Tolkien fans all around the world.
That's right. Clifford Broadway, known to many of you as Quickbeam, is an actor, writer, and voiceover artist. He's kind of got all of our talents put together, Alan, and then
seriously, I know. I'm not jealous at all. No.
And most importantly, he's a senior staff writer at theonering.net. Mm-hmm. He's a host of their weekly webcast, Torn Tuesdays, and can be found participating in a whole lot of different Tolkien-related media projects online.
That's right. Now, of course, he also helped found theonering.net, which we'll talk about in just a moment. He was also a writer on their books The People's Guide to J.R.R. Tolkien in 2003, and More People's Guide to J.R.R. Tolkien in 2004.
And he co-wrote and co-produced the 2005 documentary film Ringers, Lord of the Fans, which covered the growth of Tolkien fandom all the way from the publication of The Hobbit in 1937 to the release of Peter Jackson's films in the 21st century.
I remember seeing that at the Lido Theater in Newport. It was fantastic. I did not know at the time that Clifford was involved in writing and producing that. But we're talking about him like he's not here. So, folks, let's go ahead and welcome him and actually bring him into the show tonight. Quickbeam or Clifford, welcome to the Prancing Pony podcast.
I'm so grateful. Whoa, I can't. That is quite an introduction, gentlemen. And I'm delighted to be here. And I'm even more excited to know you were at the Lido Theater at the Newport Beach Film Festival. You were there.
I was there, that long line, and saw it live. And I remember that. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
What a day that was.
See, I was not there for that, but Alan and I were both at the Return of the One Party. In 2004.
Oh, you guys were both there for that too. Oh,
I was actually there for all 6 parties, including the very quiet one after the first Hobbit.
That's right. That's right. When they were nominated for hair and makeup wigs.
Exactly. It was more of a wake than a party, but yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, okay. I'll take it.
I don't mean the party itself. I just mean the fact that it was for a movie that, didn't win 14 Oscars like we've become accustomed.
It's true. The Hobbit was received very differently. We can get to that later, but I'm really delighted that we're still talking about the same thing.
Yes.
And, it's all about, in my position where I'm sitting at the onering.net, and certainly what we talk about every week is how popular culture, in its own weird, multifaceted way, is bouncing off of Tolkien's literary legacy. It would be different if we were talking about Asimov or if we were talking about Emily Bronte, whoever. We're really talking about Tolkien and his secondary world as if we're still that familiar with it, as if we're that kind of audience that we're still inhabiting that space.
Yes.
So I find it really intriguing that we're still able to have these energized conversations, especially at this point with the new projects and new adaptations coming out.
Oh, yes, indeed. And we'll be getting to that for sure. But first, since this is your first time on the Prancing Pony podcast, there may be a second. We'd love to have you again. We want to ask you the question we ask everybody who comes on the show. When and how did you first discover Tolkien's work?
Arthur Rankin Jr. and Jules Bass.
Yes.
And their animated telefilm that won the Peabody Award, ultimately. Let's not forget that. And it was that experience with The Hobbit being broadcast in 1977 that made me suddenly realize, oh, wow, there's a storyteller out there who has written an entire book about this little guy going off on an adventure with a bunch of dwarves to try to reclaim lost treasure, lost dragon treasure, no less.
Exciting. Yeah.
And it blew my little mind. It blew my little mind at the time.
I suspect you and I were similarly aged at the time. I was just a 9-year-old boy when that came out, and I remembered as well. That's how I was introduced to Tolkien.
Yeah, indeed. I was 8, maybe 8.5. We're so close. It's amazing that the animation license at the time that was given to them to make that story is now the current story we're talking about, with Saul Zaentz giving up those very rights and putting them up for sale to the highest bidder. It's weird how cyclical these conversations are. But of course, when I was 8 years old, I had no consciousness of that.
Not at all.
No, there was something about the way Mr. Richard Boone had provided his voice for Smaug. The way that he just used Tolkien's dialogue about, my armor is like tenfold shields. My teeth are like swords. My claws, spears, the shock of my tail, a thunderbolt. And as a voice actor, nobody could give you better juice to run on than John Ronald Reuel Tolkien.
Oh, yeah.
I agree with that 1,000%. Yeah.
There's probably something that's happening to me now in my, at this stage in the game where I do little bits of voice work here and there, and my great interests in animation and animated feature films. And it's all blended into that moment in time when Tolkien intersected with my life for the very first time. And then it became my older brother and I jockeying to get access to the book. There's only one copy available, and it was in between our hands each and every day, with us struggling to read it when the other one was not reading it.
The advantages of being an only child, right, Sean?
Yeah. Well, I see my kids fighting over books now, and I'm like, yeah.
Things I didn't have to experience.
Yep, exactly.
It's really lovely. That's a great memory I'll always hold dear. Competing with my brother to get my hands on The Hobbit at the time. And then it was an immediate evolution to reading The Lord of the Rings right after that.
Yeah,
and that's a familiar story that so many of us know so well.
Oh, yeah.
I think it took me 4 years to move on to The Lord of the Rings because I didn't know it existed. My copy of The Hobbit was the actual animated movie book, right? The book that had the stills from the film.
You and me both, brother. You and me both.
Yeah.
Right. As I think I've talked about on the show before, I bought them as a 4-volume box set.
Oh, yeah.
And so I read The Hobbit. I devoured The Hobbit in 3 days or something. And then I went straight on into Fellowship. So there was not even a blink. It was, probably later the same day.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Now, that beautiful edition you just mentioned that had all the illustrated stills from the animated film, keep in mind the chapter with Beorn, the skin changer, was not in the film at all.
Oh, that's right. Oh, I'd forgotten about that.
In the book that we had as kids, they had to go back to the artists at Topcraft Studio in Japan. Now, Rankin and Bass had their production offices in Manhattan, but they often flew to Japan to work out the things with their sister production company, Topcraft.
Right.
And so they got their artists to draw and create all new full color and black and white artwork for that chapter to include Beorn, because he was never in the film.
I'm going to have to go back and look at that tonight after our interview.
That's amazing. Well, before we go on, Clifford, I have to ask, how did you decide on QuickBeam as your online handle? Did you once say yes to an elder torn staffer before he had finished his question?
Yes, probably. Everybody had to choose an online avatar name at the time.
Yeah.
In the year 1999 and the year 2000, when things were starting up. So when you signed on to America Online, you had to make up some goofy pseudonym.
My goodness.
I remember those days.
Yeah. Wow.
So I'm sorry to say, but all those jokes in Captain Marvel, for a certain generation of people, they strike very funny.
Yeah.
They were very true. The name QuickBeam was just a character when everybody else who was volunteering to work for the OneRing.net, they were not using their real names. They were using their online avatar name. And I just went for that one and gravitated to it because I always thought that the Ents and my overall personal concerns with the environmental causes that are important to me, and obviously the environmental causes that are important to Professor Tolkien, are no better realized than they are in Treebeard. And QuickBeam and his energy that was brought to the story, his relationship with Merry and Pippin, as brief and fun as it was, I always imagined he would show up in The Lord of the Rings somewhere, but he's not named, and we don't see him in the Peter Jackson adaptations at all.
Yeah, that's true.
He's like the Glorfindel of all the Ents.
Yeah,
The
that's right.
Glorfindel of Ents.
That's right.
He never gets to be seen, like poor Tom Bombadil as well. It's just a funny thing. Now, no one does that as much anymore, is making up goofy online avatar names. It's usually your first name and your last name squished together.
That's true. These days it is. Yeah, it's pretty dull in that regard. I much prefer the clever solution that you came up with,
Where it's the real Luke Evans.
Oh yes, of course. You've got to have the real, because there's going to be so many fakes. Yeah.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Well, you mentioned that the QuickBeam thing came about when you were starting up with the OneRing.net. You've been on staff there since 1999, which pretty much since the beginning. Tell us a little bit about how and why the site was founded, and then how you got involved with it.
Well, it's really an interesting story to tell right now, because we're celebrating our 23rd anniversary.
Wow.
The very first posting ever posted on the One Ring. Exactly. I think that myself too. Wow. Were we ever that young? We talked about it live during our live stream yesterday. Mm-hmm. And my co-host and producer, Justin, reminded me that there were 4 individuals who met one another in an online chat room. Mm-hmm. There was Erica in New Zealand, and there was Bill in Kenosha, Wisconsin. There was Chris, who was in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Then there was Michael, who was somewhere in Toronto. And the 4 of them, they are the 4 founders. Yeah. Honestly, I was not one of the 4 founders. I was just one of the first people to be brought on technically as a contributing writer and editor. But when the One Ring was founded, these 4 individuals met one another online and thought, whoa, wait a minute. They made a big announcement in Daily Variety that this intrepid filmmaker that people aren't really paying attention to, that guy who just did The Frighteners, he's that guy who just, who did Heavenly Creatures a little while back. Well, now they're throwing money at him to do something in New Zealand. And Erica and the other 3 gentlemen all got together, set up a server in Wisconsin, and agreed to start funneling in news stories and editorials and commentary from other places of the internet where the earliest stories were starting to appear. And Erica was boots on the ground in New Zealand, the very first of its kind. And so we were a nascent website of 4 people who just wanted to volunteer their wild enthusiasm for Tolkien and translate that into what would become, who knew that it would become such a huge destination site.
Right.
Yeah, on the level of Ain't It Cool News, and at the time, IGN, and even Yahoo Entertainment News. Any other websites that were out there, they were all competing fervently for that nerd audience. Yes. And it was a really, really interesting time to look back on it now. And the first stories started to appear, and they were suddenly noticing that cameras and fencing were being put up around this sheep farm outside of Matamata on the North Island, and that was going to be the Shire location. We got the earliest reports of the Shire being somewhere there on the North Island, and we started siphoning interviews from other local New Zealand reporters. And then the message boards were launched, followed quickly by the introduction of the IRC chat called Barlamans. And it became a huge destination for everybody online to come and chat and share and debate whether Balrogs had wings.
Oh, there's no debate.
And everyone at the time was really panicking. They're like, are they going to make it look like Willow? Are they going to make it look like Xena and Hercules, which was currently the big fantasy property being produced and filmed in New Zealand? Lo and behold, our message boards exploded, and then it started being populated by cast and crew members secretly themselves, who were doing the same thing that I had done, creating an avatar name to go online and post and get news. And suddenly this group of filmmakers down in New Zealand were not really quite as isolated on the opposite side of the world as they had been for so long. Suddenly, all of the world's attention was fiercely and bizarrely focused on them, and they ate it up like hotcakes.
Yeah,
it fueled and helped raise their morale on set while they were working. They were so excited to know that there was so much fan speculation, especially when Peter went on and did 20 questions over at Ain't It Cool News. And then the internet blew up with him talking about doing forced perspective and the introduction of the massive software that was going to help run creating massive digital armies. Right. And of course, we got a good eyeful of that in the opening 7 minutes of Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then the media went into overdrive when the Cannes Film Festival happened in France. And our founding member, Chris Parada, who was online as Calasuri, he was invited by New Line Cinema to go and get to see this exquisite segment of film from the Battle of Khazad-dûm, the battle in the Chamber of Mazarbul, and the first appearance of the Balrog in cinema history. And they invited all the world's press and all the world's media. And who was invited along with, every major newspaper, magazine, and press outlet in the world? There was our guy, Calasuri. There he was.
That's awesome.
From the OneRing.net. And when it really came together and what really drove my focus was they asked for writers to come and volunteer. And early in my career online, I was working for the webmaster of McKellen.com, which was a curated website for Sir Ian McKellen, which was created by webmaster Keith Stern. And Keith had hired me, and I was working with Keith Stern, and a lot of business was going on with the Oscar campaign for Sir Ian with the Bill Condon film Gods and Monsters.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He had a Best Supporting Actor nomination.
Right.
At that time, he had not even been cast as Magneto, nor had he been cast as Gandalf. We didn't even know that was going to happen yet.
Right.
And as soon as I got that phone call and Keith said, "You're not going to believe this. I hope you're sitting down." Because my boss knew, everybody knew what a crazy Tolkienite I was, what a ringer I was, so to speak. And lo and behold, Keith sat me down and said, not only did Ian just get cast to play Magneto, but at the exact same time, over difficult scheduling problems, New Line Cinema has also offered him the role of Gandalf in The Lord of the Rings. And I lost my marbles. And I immediately responded to the outreach email at theonering.net saying, not only am I a hardcore Tolkien nerd who can write all kinds of interesting stuff for you as a writer, but I also can help back channel interesting media or information or bits of rumors from Ian that wouldn't normally go through the team that they had in place at New Line Cinema with Gordon Pattison, who was certainly there helping manage all the online relationships with everybody. So it was really, really interesting that there was subterfuge and also the great desire to reveal more to the fandom through as many means possible. And I personally was just one lucky duck sitting right there at that intersection of time and place when everything accidentally and beautifully came together. And Michael, Regina, and Chris, and everybody at theonering.net, they don't hire people. They just agree to bring people into the volunteer network of the One Ring. And it's always been constructed that way as a web community that's run by volunteer individuals who spent all their time moderating the message boards when they needed to be cleaned up and writing feature articles and doing interviews with people around town. It was always volunteers who did that. Yeah. And as soon as they brought me in, I was able to work for McKellen.com at the same time working for the One Ring. And thus began the great story.
Wow.
And that brought me certainly to where I am today. And, that there's a clear through line to how we made the Ringers documentary as well. But we'll get to that in a minute. I wanted to say a second. At the time, the OneRing.com was also there as a very big presence as a fan website. And I looked at your questions and you guys were, you guys, I'll let you go ahead and ask me the question. I'm thinking ahead of myself. Forgive me, but
no, that's okay.
That's all right.
There was one website and there was .net, and there was another website and there were .com, but they were both the One Ring. And the distinction between us, I think, was that, our news focus was bringing in an editorial slant on what the other entertainment news journalists were saying and our keen interest in what Peter Jackson was doing at the time. And the OneRing.com had a more scholarly and very book-ish, perhaps literary approach to things. But we wanted to reflect some of that as well. In the early days of the OneRing.net, my main work with a lot of other writers and contributors was to create an online news magazine called Green Books. And we still have that online as a library. It's called The Library on our current website. But the Green Book section was a place where we had a lot of feature articles and scholarly discussion. And we had Q&A submitted to our secret email address for people to question, and our online scholars would do their best to answer things that were confusing about Tolkien's Legendarium. And in that lifetime of Green Books, we ended up having some surprising contributors, and one of them is still a person whose name and identity is being kept secret, and the fidelity of that secret is still strong. Okay. But he is one of the most well-known Tolkien scholars and well-known working in the publishing world of Tolkien, and he became one of our best and brightest online contributors to Green Books. His articles were great. We had access to interview people like Karen Wind Fonstad, who's the great cartographer who made the Atlas of Middle-earth. Yeah. And a lot of other fantasy IPs that she did atlases for as well. I think Dragon Riders of Pern as well. And, we interviewed so many interesting people, but it wasn't just a bunch of fans coming together. We actually had scholars from the publishing world coming in to contribute to Green Books. And then we realized that we had lots and lots of talk about the films and energy about the pop culture aspect, as well as we had a decent representation of, more literary interests there at the One Ring. And we don't have that right now. At the time, we don't have enough volunteers. So if we had more, if there was another group of intrepid people and another editor who wanted to come, we would probably launch another new iteration of the Green Books at any time that could happen. Hey, I'm just planting the seeds out there for anyone who's listening.
Excellent.
We've got a big community and a lot of people who like to write, so you never know.
Absolutely.
We've had an interesting evolution at the OneRing.net. Now, instead of the IRC chat being the popular thing, it's the Discord server, which is wildly growing. Big numbers growing with people joining the Discord chat. And the distinction is that it's a very friendly and welcoming place because it's well moderated. We have an ongoing ethos at the OneRing.net that you could probably say that Tolkien is for everyone. And Professor Tolkien himself would probably also agree that his writing can reach anyone and everyone. And he's not with us anymore. But when he was alive, he was quite surprised and pleased that there were so many foreign language editions. And he worked so diligently with so many translators to get things right, because his work is for everyone. It's gone all around the world and back. Yeah. So when we don't have the kind of content that you'll find with certain rage tubers who have a certain negative approach, who want to go negative on things all the time and blah, blah, blah. We don't have any of that kind of toxicity or weirdness.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. It's like if you want to sit around and have a really good chat with people about why Glorfindel never shows up and what incredible insights we could have into the relationships between men and elves and all the connections to those great stories. You will have people around who will always be willing to come and sit and talk for real about Tolkien and what really drives us,
That's great.
It's kind of that thing that has kept it going.
Yeah.
And even when we got to the stages of wanting to make a documentary film, the OneRing.net had to be our first, investor. There was we were doing media all around town when Peter Jackson showed up in Los Angeles. There was a New Zealand film consulate event, and they were holding it down at the Beverly Hills Hotel. And, we got press access because we were a press outlet, technically, even though we were a fan website.
Right.
So suddenly I had my microphone in everybody's face, and I was interviewing Billy and Dom and Philippa and Fran and Peter and Elijah, and they were all there. I was interviewing all these people before, and they were so alive with the light in their eyes because they knew what they were making. They knew that what they were making was something really special. We had no idea yet, and they were so excited to have these relationships with the One Ring because it was the way for the fans to keep. I mean, not only was it free, completely unfettered pre-release publicity for New Line Cinema, where they didn't have to pay a dime to get that free
Right.
publicity.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Beyond all that, we didn't intend it to be that. We were just excited that things were not done the way they were done in 1978,
Right.
when United Artists really treated Ralph Bakshi very badly. And the situation did not go well for him, and therefore there was never a part 2 to his film. They wouldn't even allow it to be printed on the posters. So now Peter was being handed a golden ticket, and Peter was being treated very well because the way that New Line handled their business and did all the pre-release sales in foreign markets made them flush with money to extend it from 1 to 2 to 3 films. And, we were all very, very excited without knowing how good it was going to be. And then it happened. There it was, the theatrical release of Fellowship of the Ring. And the person who wrote the film review in Daily Variety, I'll remember these words forever. He said, it was an embarrassment of riches.
Yeah.
And you don't get that kind of effusive praise from,
doubt.
hard-boiled Fleet Street reporters who work at, Daily Variety. They're, but I'm telling you, the moment happened in time when our engines were revving at theonering.net, because what had happened? There was an intersection of Tolkien and popular culture that had never, ever hit at that wavelength.
No.
And everyone was affected by it, weren't they? I remember.
They really were. Yeah.
Suddenly everyone was a Lord of the Rings fan. And I was very popular in the office because people knew that people knew that I had read the Silmarillion and, all the books that they had never even heard of. And so they started coming to me and asking me questions. And it was a good time to be a Tolkien fan, for sure.
It sure was. It sure was.
One common theme I keep on hearing as you're talking here, Cliff, is like sort of this, there's kind of a symbiotic relationship between the cast and crew and theonering.net. I mean, I had friendly relationship in my notes. It was really more than that. I mean, there really was a back and forth with the team there. And I'd love to hear more about that. Just how did it happen? It sounds like it kind of happened in a lot of different ways. Like, you talk about the cast just sort of reacting to what you guys were doing and just kind of feeding off of it. Yeah, I'd love to just hear more about how it happened and what kind of fruit it bore for theonering.net and probably continues to.
Yeah.
It happened through our experiences relating with Weta and a lot of the cast and crew that we met at the cons, at San Diego Comic-Con, and also in Atlanta at Dragon Con and other European-based con events. We had volunteers who were working for theonering.net. They were all over the world.
Yeah.
We had volunteers in Germany and Asia, and of course all across South America, North America, and in New Zealand. Whenever there was a big convention or an event, one of our volunteers who was there to do reporting or to take notes or to get an interview was suddenly whisked away to meet the filmmakers and to get up close with the cast because it became the best way for what they wanted. The people who were producing and building, the carpenters and the painters and all the fabricators working so diligently with Weta, they were so excited to meet us at San Diego Comic-Con and find that when they were mentioned in the big hall, at that time was Ballroom 20 was the biggest thing they had. Hall H had not even been built yet. Okay, imagine that.
Wow, that is a while ago, yeah.
Yeah, at the San Diego Convention Center, you mentioned what was happening in New Zealand and what Weta was building in terms of armor or orcish latex makeup or weapons. And the audience went nuts. And it gave them that kinetic energy that they had never had. And we made constant and quick friendships with Sir Richard Taylor and Tanya Roger, who would go on to win many Oscars.
Yeah, they would.
Working on those 6 films. And we made friends with Daniel Falconer and all the great artists who were working so hard at Weta Workshop. So at one point, I got embedded on the set during the filming of the Two Towers sequences. I was just a quiet little nerd guy from a nerd website trying to, sneak around and visit. But Ian had invited me to come to the set. New Line Cinema knew nothing about it. And I went down there to visit, and I got to see the interior of the Golden Hall, where Legolas, Gimli, and Aragorn and Gandalf arrive and have the healing of Theoden. So I was there on the day when they were shooting the scenes of Gandalf healing Theoden in the Golden Hall.
Oh, wow.
And right next door was an empty set where just a couple of days prior, Denethor had set himself ablaze with all the sarcophagi around him and all the beautiful statues.
Yeah.
An amazing transfer. Just walk down the hall and you transfer from space and time in Middle Earth from Gondor to Meduseld. It was so wild to be there on set while they were filming.
That would be amazing.
It really was. It was the ultimate nerd moment that I've ever experienced. It really was. I was not allowed to write about it until a year later. So I wrote everything out and then got the stuff published online on the OneRing.net 1 year later on when it was allowed.
Yeah.
And it was really, one of the most interesting things to see. They wanted everybody to know, the actors and the performers, especially sitting in the lunchroom while they were having a break and eating a meal and talking to the background actors who were just local people who owned a paint shop or owned a nail salon, who worked down the shoreline. There were so many interesting people who were thinking, no one's ever heard of us. We're just a little sheep farming island down here. No one's ever heard of us. They had no idea that all the trajectory of the world's attention would be drawn to them with such laser eyes on them and on their little world. And now New Zealand is ultimately synonymous with Middle Earth.
Oh, yeah.
All these years later, that the point that Amazon Studios certainly chose to film season 1 of their upcoming television series there in the same locations.
And we'll certainly get to that too. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we'll get to that for sure. But I'm happy to say that the symbiotic relationship was furthered by our writers and our contributors at the One Ring getting to meet the people at convention events, and they were just itching to get a taste of what they were creating into the hands of a very eager and very thirsty fandom that wanted to know, what's the Galadriel's costume going to look like?
Yeah.
What are you really going to do with that Smeagol Gollum motion capture digital stuff you're doing? What are you really going to do, Peter? Because watching Fellowship of the Ring, the question was not yet answered.
Right.
How he was going to handle Gollum. So, by the time The Two Towers came out, it was $1 billion later, many Oscars later. It was the toast of the town, and New Line knew they had a guaranteed success.
Yeah.
At that point, the life on the internet was riding high. It was a really big crest of a wave in popular culture that went on 3 years in a row because of the theatrical release pattern of the films.
Yeah.
And it went on and on and on. And then ultimately to the big grand slam of that Oscar party that we held for all the fans.
That was fantastic. Yeah.
When The Return of the King had a clean sweep.
Yeah. I still remember vividly standing there, second or third row maybe, and looking at, 30 Oscars on stage, Peter Jackson and the entire Weta crew and everybody holding up their Oscars. And it was just breathtaking. It was so cool to see that.
It was such a fun party. I mean,
it really was.
Yeah.
My eyes were blinded.
Yeah.
My retinas have been forever imprinted by the glare of all those gold statues.
Those little gold statuettes.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, folks, before we get back to the discussion, we do want to make sure that you know when you finish listening to this episode, the talk continues all night long at the Prancing Pony Podcast.
That's right. Our wonderful listener community keeps the conversation going in all of our social media spaces, from our common room on Facebook to our Reddit community, Twitter, and more.
On Facebook, just look for the Prancing Pony Podcast and be sure to follow the page and join the group for some great discussions.
And you can find us on Reddit at r/PrancingPonyPod. And we're also at Prancing Pony Pod on Twitter and Instagram.
And don't forget to check out our new podcast, The Rings of Power Wrap-Up, where we discuss, analyze, and speculate all about Amazon's television adaptation of J.R.R. Tolkien's Middle-earth.
We'll take deep dives into the lore behind the show. We'll talk about our favorite themes and characters and a whole lot more. So look for The Rings of Power Wrap-Up and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And check out our social media at Rings Wrap-Up for more.
All right. Well, welcome back, folks. Clifford, theonering.net does seem to have a reputation, right or wrong, for being a little more focused on adaptations of Tolkien's work than a lot of other fan communities like, let's say, the Tolkien Society or Signum Mythgard, or even our own listener community. Is that an accurate representation, or is that maybe an oversimplification in some way? And in your own words, what would be the unique niche that theonering.net fills in the landscape of Tolkien fans around the world?
I do appreciate the thoughtfulness of that question.
We think every now and then, don't we, Sean?
We do try.
You guys are awesome. The real essence of theonering.net is seemingly fueled by how much attention is being paid to adaptations that are popular at the time. And it would seem that way only because of that aspect of how often we reflect other news sources and other news headlines from around the world. So in between The Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit trilogy, there was a quiet time when things were just a little bit quieter because we didn't have as much news.
Right.
And then, the Hobbit trilogy happened and there was an uptick of, much more activity. But indeed, there is a place for everyone on the onering.net to at least come and talk about how Tolkien has always affected them with our message boards and with the many different platforms on which we run, other sister platforms that are part of our main website, on other social channels. There's always a vibrant discussion about the benefits, how we as the readership of Tolkien are the beneficiaries. And when there's a big adaptation that comes out, there's always an increase in book sales. There is an interesting ratio of constantly what we see, and we honestly see people, younglings, and even older people come to the message boards and come to talk with us online. And I see them chat with me in the live stream every Tuesday. And they say, I was driven to reading these books because I was so interested in watching The Hobbit or watching The Lord of the Rings when I saw it the first time. And every time there's another big adaptation, even to a lesser degree when the video games become wildly popular, and the uptick in readership also brings people to our site. So I've always seen us as a hybridization of those who are into the learned academia of Professor Tolkien's philological concerns and his academic history and his other great writings and his scholarship. But we don't necessarily talk about his scholarship as much as we talk about how his scholarship is necessarily reflected in the adaptations that we've been digesting at that moment in time. So there's both. I see both aspects of pop culture, eating itself alive, as much as I see, the heritage line of fans who actually want to talk about, the gravity of this book can't be lost in all the noise and digital noise that's appearing on screen. And that dynamism keeps it alive and keeps it very interesting to me, really.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And I mean, it's the way I've always seen theonering.net is, we asked the question because we're interested in your take on it. But to me, it's always seemed like you're kind of finger on the pulse of the fandom in a lot of ways. And that feeling I had when, when the movies were coming out in 2001 through 2003. And like I said, everybody was a Tolkien fan for a little while. Your site seems to kind of still have your finger on the pulse of that. Is like, when is Tolkien going to explode back onto the world in a new way? Yeah. And I think that's really exciting.
I agree. I also have really enjoyed helping to steer the conversation in ways that are healthier and more egalitarian, shall I say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially lately.
Yeah. We need that.
Yeah. I definitely hear you.
we need some good, positive voices out there steering the discussion.
Agreed. It's nice to see dynamism is one thing, and, classic American contrarianism is another thing. But, ultimately, when it comes to talking about the Rings of Power, we'll get there pretty soon.
We will.
But the most interesting thing to me, I think I vocalized it in a tweet, and I don't rarely do tweets as effectively to crystallize my thoughts as I would really like to. At one point, I said online, and I'm sticking to it, as an individual who is a really concerned Tolkien fan and a very invested and enthusiastic consumer of pop culture, I am sitting at the intersection right now of two very big and powerful forces. One of them is the tremendous literary legacy of Professor Tolkien and his learned approach to invented languages, conlang, and his son, Christopher, who took such careful stewardship of his father's legacy. And then he stepped aside from that job, and now it's held by other people now. We're not quite sure what's going on. And we're at the intersection of a great big literary legacy, and the other component is a $1 billion, with a B, $1 billion entertainment franchise, which is going to be the top capstone of a pyramid structure of other entertainment franchises and other offshoots and projects under some other corporation's bigger business investment approach. Mm-hmm. And here we are sitting in the middle of all this. Isn't it the weirdest place to be as a fan?
It is.
Yeah.
It's that's not a controversial take, but it is my most honest take. I'm concerned about both dynamic forces having to crisscross now, and now they have to become dance partners. Oh, there we go again.
Yep.
Art and commerce. They are yet again strange and unusual dance partners. But when they come together and it works out okay, they become very interesting dance partners, and it's never dull to watch them out on the dance floor. It's never dull. And that's pretty much the position that I'm sitting in. I mean, other than that, I'm here to observe and report. I'm not here to, quote unquote, defend the legacy of Tolkien and what his legacy is supposed to mean, blah, blah, blah. I'm here to tell you once again that Professor Tolkien is for everyone. And now we're going to watch a very large, crazy business creature that has $1 billion and looks a little bit like Lex Luthor. And he's about to make do with a literary legacy that we're all very wrapped up in. Yeah. And here we are. We're at the intersection of these things, and I don't know what to do next, except watch and wait and see.
Yeah.
I mean, really, what else can any of us do, right? Except just keep on being fans. And I don't want to say accept what comes. You don't have to be happy about what comes, but just sort of take in what comes and react.
Indeed.
Yeah, that's really well said. And maybe that answer kind of, you might have preempted this next question, but, you know, obviously the content of the OneRing.net has evolved over time, you know, as the Peter Jackson adaptations, you know, become more of a memory. And of course, now we're starting to look forward to the Rings of Power from Amazon. How do you feel the OneRing.net has grown in the years you've been involved with it? And what do you see as the future?
Well, honestly, I've made the analogy before that with all the other fan websites and content creators, some of the YouTube content creators are absolutely dynamite, and they have such strong and wonderful voices in creating content. There are online Tolkien communities. Many of them spring up in the most surprising places, like our recent launching of our Discord and the very active subreddits, obviously, not to mention, our classic message boards are still there. It wasn't so long ago that director and filmmaker, Oscar winner Guillermo del Toro came right onto our message boards and said, "Hi, I'm Guillermo. I'm here to answer your questions and talk to you fans." And, you know, it's a thing that's still out there. And I'm quite surprised, maybe. But I've always made the analogy in my mind, and I only spoke it out loud recently. And I think I'll say it again because it's kind of funny and maybe it's a worthy analogy. But with all the other content that's out there, I consider the OneRing.net is kind of like the great-grandfather clock in the house. You don't always see it. It's not always within your line of sight. But when it chimes, you hear it.
Yeah.
So you might be upstairs. You might be out on the veranda. You might be upstairs in the master bedroom on some other website. But when the OneRing.net makes an announcement or drops an exclusive, like the one we just did yesterday when we heard that Mr. Howard Shore had booked rooms to stay for 3 weeks in London for some unknown purpose. You know, whenever the grandfather clock, which is the OneRing.net, strikes, everyone on the internet hears it.
Yeah.
And that's why we still get quoted by a lot of other major news and press outlets and magazines and other press places. It's interesting, but that we're still the oldest one there, 23 bloody years. We didn't have the same problems like when Warner Brothers was doing cease and desist letters to little 12-year-old girls who had Harry Potter fan websites.
Yep.
Yeah, that really happened.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And it never happened to us. So yeah, we're still here. And in the future, I'm sure that's going to be an evolution based on what other kind of experiences we have to talk about and share as Professor Tolkien's works are now being touched upon by other minds and hands.
Other minds and hands. Great reference. Yeah, and letter 131, of course, to Milton Waldman was also part of the prefatory material to the Silmarillion. So,
Right.
Yes. And is now the title of Corey Olson's wonderful new series. Whoever's gotten incredibly itchy and uncomfortable with the idea that other minds and hands are going to start making adaptations of Tolkien, I mean, please don't bother. It's just going to happen. It's going to happen anyways. You might as well relax and enjoy the ride. That's my personal perspective as a Tolkien fan. I didn't like the fact that Shadow of War, the video game, was playing, fast and loose with making Shelob into a beautiful, gorgeous humanoid who's standing there in a slinky black cocktail dress. I wasn't into that, but, but what are you going to do?
Right, exactly. What are you going to do?
Indeed. Everybody else seemed to enjoy the video game, and it was still a really pretty badass video game.
Yeah. Assassin's Creed Middle-earth. Yeah, I mean, it was...
to be honest, I still have a lot of problems with Peter, Fran, and Philippa making the decision that Faramir was going to drag Frodo and Sam all the way to Osgiliath.
That has been my biggest gripe.
We have had that conversation almost every episode this season. Because we've been in that book.
Yeah. Well, we're in the middle of that section of the book right now. Anyway, we just finished Journey. Well, I think did we finish Journey to the Crossroads, or no? We're between The Window on the West and the Journey to the Crossroads in the show right now. And man, I'll tell you, we had words.
I believe it.
All right, well, let's go back and visit Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings films. We touched on those for a little while earlier on. It's been stunning to believe, but it's been 20 years, and the movies have held up incredibly well. What do you think was the magic in Jackson's adaptation, aside from his decision to have Faramir take Frodo and Sam the wrong direction? What was the magic that allowed it to stay fresh and still connect with newer audiences even today?
I think that Peter was most ambitious in demanding a lot of patience from the audience. An audience that is used to being spoon-fed an entire story in 96 minutes. And then they can walk out of the theater and not have to think about it again.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the narrative that Professor Tolkien had crafted is so much more than that.
Yeah.
And Peter Jackson decided to take an operatic approach. Literally an operatic approach, because if you wanted to go see the Wagnerian opera cycle of The Ring of the Nibelungen, you would have to go back to the opera house on multiple nights to see separate series of performances to get the entire story.
Yeah.
And Peter told Bob Shea and Michael Lynn at New Line Cinema, I can do this. And not only can we do this, we can stretch out the release pattern 1 year at a time, which is demanding an even greater patience against the audience's weakness for getting a quick fix.
Yeah.
There is something incredibly powerful that paid off like no other motion picture series that said, we're going to make you sit there for 3 hours and 20 minutes at the end of 3 years when you've already sat through 6 hours.
Right.
And you've waited for 3 years, and now we're going to make you sit here for 3 hours and 20 minutes more.
That was beautiful.
And it paid off in spades. But the combination of taking cinema and stretching the boundaries of what it could be and what it could achieve in terms of narrative storytelling is one of the greatest successes, and therefore it really changed what, even in the business end, were theater owners known as exhibitors. They were uncomfortable with Peter pushing 3-hour runtimes.
Right.
Because
that means fewer screenings, which means fewer audience members.
Exactly, per day.
Right.
But then they got over it.
Yes, they did.
They were starting their houses earlier in the morning, and their audiences were filled, and they were making so much money with concessions. They got over it.
For weeks and weeks, because people were seeing the movie over and over and over again.
I'll tell you what. I had a friend who visited from Chicago to Los Angeles. I took him to the Cinerama Dome.
Oh, what a place to see a movie.
The Fellowship of the Ring, first run.
Yep.
But it had already been in the theaters for about 16 weeks.
Oh, wow.
It had been in theaters for 2.5 months or something insane.
Yeah.
I don't know how long it was. And even to the point where the print, it was run on the 35 millimeter print.
Right.
There was a unfortunate green line, a scratch right through Galadriel's face, right through Galadriel's face.
Of course.
But to sit there with a friend who had never read the books and to see the Fellowship for the first time in the Dome, and the way that he grabbed my forearm and wept when Gandalf fell in Moria, and he whispered in my ear, "He's really gone?" And I said, "Yeah, he's really gone."
Good for you, by the way, to not spoil that and say, well, you know.
I did not. Well, because he was really gone.
Right. He did really die.
He's really gone. So I knew I was correct in being truthful in saying that, but that, you know, there's, and I know that that's a person who got turned on to reading the books, because I know my friend was a voracious, a very literate-minded fellow and a voracious reader. So back to Chicago he went with great memories of Los Angeles and went straight to the bookstore.
Good for him. That's excellent.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, the connecting thread of cinema, encouraging people to read, it even goes back to Ralph Bakshi's film in 78, because Peter Jackson was spoken of this somewhere in an interview before, where he says, I was so excited after seeing Ralph's film, and I had to take a train ride across the island all the way to the other end, and I was going to be stuck on that train for so many hours. I grabbed that paperback and started reading Lord of the Rings on that train ride.
Well, and you know, you mentioned the patience that people had to have with the Jackson films. If you watched the Bakshi film, you had to have infinite patience because he never got to finish it.
Exactly. Exactly. So we'll see what kind of uptick in readership there is with Amazon Studios releasing their new show.
Yeah.
But I'm predicting it's going to be fairly
I'm sure there
interesting.
will be.
I'm sure there's going to be an
Absolutely.
uptick. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And yet Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings are still the definitive adaptation of that book, and I think the definitive cinematic depiction of Middle-earth. And yet in that same 20 years, right, we've seen Spider-Man get rebooted twice, I think. And there's been 2 Spider-Man movies that had more than one Spider-Man in them.
Right, exactly.
One cartoon, one live action. We've gone through like 3 or 4 Batman, whatever.
Yeah.
And because Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings is so satisfying to me as a fan, I don't even want to think about the next adaptation. But since we're here talking about it, I mean, when do you think Hollywood's going to be looking at remaking the Lord of the Rings again, as opposed to doing what Amazon is doing and showing us stories that haven't been put on screen before?
Estimated 20-year generation gap, perhaps. It could be a lot smaller of a gap if the impact of the story was not as profound as it was.
Yeah.
But I would estimate about 20 years before something weird like that happens. And it might be connected to future media on a VR level where it won't even be passive media like cinema. It might be a whole different adaptation that takes over the consciousness of the world.
A whole new medium. Yeah.
Yes. It might be something.
That's an interesting idea.
That's exciting.
Imagine the Ready Player One level of Lord of the Rings next time that happens.
Oh, okay.
Like Lotro, but more so, huh?
With your VR goggles on and looking around and wow.
Imagine.
I am imagining. I'm actually quite distracted now. I can't think of the next question to ask you because I'm too excited about the idea.
That sounds kind of exciting, actually.
Yes, indeed, it is. So I'm intrigued by classic audio books and the audio dramas that we're getting now that have become so very, very good. Looking at you, Neil Gaiman, and the Sandman Audible adaptations.
Yeah.
They're really excellent.
Really good. Yeah.
Quite good. And then that will be followed by everyone getting their Sandman fix when the show is going to debut on Netflix.
Right.
The next crazy element of adaptation is the Rings of Power,
Mm-hmm.
where we're looking at a very interesting approach to adapting just the appendices that are in the back of The Return of the King.
Yeah.
We know for sure that their license does not include the Silmarillion.
That's correct. We're going to get to that in just a little bit. I'm going to stop you right there only because we want to pile all that in at the end.
Okay.
But before we move on to the next section, talking about The Lord of the Rings and talking about fandom and the cinematic, how people love to go to the cinema to see these films, that made me think a little bit of the movie Ringer's Lord of the Fans that we talked about earlier when we did our introduction. You were involved with the production of that. It was a documentary that I went and saw at the Lido on Newport Beach when it first debuted. And it should honestly be seen by all Tolkien fans. I believe Billy and Dom, who host their own podcast now, did they both narrate it, or was it just Dominic Monaghan?
It was just Dominic only. Yeah, it was his first job ever as a narrator. He wanted to break into narrating.
He did a fantastic job.
He was great to work with, yes.
It was a fantastic production. I really enjoyed watching it. Tell us a little bit about the history of that film.
Thank you. That's one things that I'm always going to look back on and say, I'm really proud of that. It's a little project that we made. I think it's a jolly good film.
Oh,
it's
yes.
a little feature documentary that was, just like our website, it was made by fans, with the fans' touch. I was the co-writer and producer of that film. And the director and writer, Carlene Cordova, she and I got together because we were working at a lot of press outlets and doing red carpet arrivals with a lot of the Lord of the Rings cast and crew. And we realized that while we were just man on the street, standing there with a camera and microphone, getting this great footage with all the people working in the New Line trilogy, in Peter Jackson's films, we thought maybe we should go a step further and keep talking to these fans about how they're lining up. These fans are standing out here on the sidewalk trying to meet these filmmakers and meet the cast members, and it's all this energy. And Carlene said, we should actually take a documentary approach to looking at the story that is unfolding in front of us right now. And I said, let's develop this idea. She said, we can use this incredible footage we're getting for the OneRing.net, where we had a lot of online video clips that Torn hosted. And that might be the first time in our podcast that I've said that acronym. We refer to the OneRing.net as Torn all the time. And we got into it with the four founders of the website, and they said, sure, let's put this together. And we'll make this film in association with you. And then you, as independent filmmakers, can make it and tell the story of how, popular culture is intersecting with Professor Tolkien. And Carlene and I got together for a lot of sessions discussing how to approach it. We wanted to do a decade by decade breakdown of how Western pop culture, in particular, was reacting and responding to the existence of these wonderful books and the nascent legacy that began in the 1930s with the publication of The Hobbit. So we made a documentary with a little bit of startup money from a couple of very interesting fans who wanted to make early investments into the film. And then we got into talks with the co-producer and executive producer of the X-Men films. And his name is Tom DeSanto. Tom DeSanto also executive produced the Transformers films. And he got a bunch of really cool investors to come together and help us make the film so we could travel around and take our cameras to England. We went to interview Brian Sibley, Tolkien author and spokesperson Brian Sibley, who also worked on the BBC adaptation, of course. We interviewed a lot of people, including Terry Pratchett, before he died. We traveled across America to interview. We interviewed David Carradine and filmmakers, and we got to meet with the guys from Rush.
That's right. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
And Geddy Lee let us have one of their songs for $1 to license to use, and it's the song called Rivendell.
Right, yeah.
How did I know that was coming? Yep.
We had talked to some friends who talked to Robert Plant on a tennis court in Europe, and they agreed to license Ramble On for our film. So we got all the people who wanted. We did a lot of outreach to a lot of people who. Sitting down with David Carradine right after he'd finished filming Kill Bill, Volume 1 and Volume 2, he wore that jacket during our interview. It was amazing.
Oh, cool.
And he talked about how he petitioned Ralph Bakshi to play the part of Aragorn in the 1978 film. It was really a fascinating conversation. We got interview with Clive Barker, who, to tell you professionally, as an interviewer across all spectrum of talking to actors and directors and media personalities, I've never, ever had a more successful and more intelligent sit-down interview in my entire career than I have had with Mr. Clive Barker himself. The most satisfying and intelligent conversation I've ever had about tracing the anthropological outlook of mythology, connected to Tolkien storytelling, connected to modern day horror and film and other art forms. It was a fascinating deep dive. I hope someday Carlene will release the raw tapes of my conversation with Mr. Barker. But Ringer's Lord of the Fans became an intriguing effort just to document what was going on with fans experiencing the energy of the 3-film release pattern of Lord of the Rings. And we got to go down to New Zealand and visit actual filming locations. Down to the South Island, getting to Queenstown and to film the incredible mountains. Well, it was a really fun effort. And we won at the Newport Beach Film Festival for outstanding achievement of Best Documentary Film. I was so pleased. We went to Slam Dance, and when we were there at Park City, we had tense meetings with New Line Cinema. They walked out of the screening and they weren't interested in it. So instead, it was weird, but instead, we thought it would be interesting to package the film with the home video release of LOTR, but that wasn't going to be. We had a different destiny, and we made a deal with Sony Pictures. And so they distributed our film worldwide and got to be released on home video and on television and cable for many years. But most interestingly, after all that attention we got, it has been lost. It has been a temporarily lost film that nobody could get their hands on unless they had an original, CD, or a DVD rather.
Yeah, standard def too. I still have mine.
Oh, good Lord. It was in standard def.
640 by 480 makes my eyes hurt, but I still watched it every now and then.
You're so funny, dude. I love you so much. I appreciate you so much. Really, I do.
Well, thank you.
The good news is that the film was originally shot in 1080 in high def.
Oh, good.
However, we released it in standard def because at the time, that's all that spinning platters would do.
Well, right. Yeah, you couldn't. Right. There was nothing to show 1080. That was a crazy number. It was like having 8 megabytes of RAM in your computer when Bill Gates told you didn't need it.
Exactly. So the good news is that I had a recent chit chat with the director, Carlene, and she said that I'm now able to exclusively release the news on the Prancing Pony podcast that our documentary film Ringers has recently been in the editing bay with John Welch, our co-editor, and with the director herself. And I have seen the way the film has been cut and trimmed and cleaned up, and they've up-resed and upscaled everything to high def. So there's going to be imminently, they're shopping it around to streaming platforms, and imminently there will be an announcement sometime, hopefully later this year.
So that great news.
Ringers 2.0 as a documentary piece will now exist again and can be seen by everybody.
And it should be.
That's awesome. That's great news. Yeah.
It really should be. It was a great experience. I loved it. And I'm serious when I say I've watched it more than once since then, just because it's such a wonderful experience to be reminded of that time of
Thank you.
What it was like to be a Tolkien fan in those days. And of course, it extends even further back, but I love the interviews with the musicians, especially. That was one of my favorite bits. And I know it would be for you too, Sean. So
yeah, totally. Absolutely. And I'm so excited that it's going to be re-released and improved. That's great.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it actually has been tightened up and trimmed up a bit here and there. The movie still, to me, plays like an interesting time capsule where we start in the 50s, and we even got to interview Uncle Forey himself, Forrest Ackerman.
Oh, wow.
The creator and publisher of famous monsters of Filmland.
Yep.
We got to interview Forrest J. Ackerman before he died, and he reminisced about taking the very first attempt at a screenplay adaptation and delivered it in person under the nose of Professor Tolkien himself.
The famous Zimmerman script.
Oh, good Lord. It was disastrous.
Oh, boy.
It was so disastrous. We got Dominic to do the narration for us, and I personally wrote some of the little animated sequences that we have.
Oh, yeah, did you? Okay.
We got a talented animator named Kevin Gralewski, who's a wonderful graduate from Caltech. Same people who brought us Pixar and Tim Burton. And he made little animated sequences that are done in the style of Terry Gilliam and his cutouts for Monty Python.
That's exactly what they reminded me of, was the rail animations.
Yeah, exactly. So we got to playfully talk a little bit about the history of the 50s, then going up to the 60s and the counterculture movement in London and in the Western U.S., where the Berkeley students were offering to protest against the illegal paperback edition that
the Ace paperback, yes.
Yeah, the infamous one from Ace, So then we jump ahead to the 70s and talk about the animated releases of the film, and then the 80s, where we describe, of course, the explosion of Dungeons and Dragons and its connecting DNA to Tolkien's work. And we did a big segment about rock and roll and rings. Where we interview so many different rock and rollers and talk about, Professor Tolkien influencing so many musicians. And we even got to talk to Lemmy Kilmister before he passed.
That's right. I remember that. Yeah.
It's such fun. And then the movie goes up to the 90s and discusses the nascent craziness of the early internet days. Yeah. And it looks a little bit like, to me, I understand those jokes in Captain Marvel better than anyone because we were actually looking at the early internet of the 90s, and that was when 23 years ago, the OneRing.net began. And then the movie concludes by looking at how crazy things got with Peter Jackson's releases of his 3 films.
Yeah,
and that's the end of our film. And then, if it were to be another iteration of Ringers, wouldn't it be interesting to cover how fandom is changing with these new adaptations going forward? There was that London stage musical that barely lasted for a couple of months. And then there was the video games that had been so popular and LOTR online. And then now the next wave is yet to come.
Yes, it is.
So who knows? Anything could happen, and there could be more interesting things to document in the near future.
Well, speaking of the fandom, obviously you've seen a sea change, if you will, during your time with the OneRing.net in the fandom. We've seen it ourselves. In 1999, most fans were people who had been introduced to Tolkien through the books. I mean, a few, like you, had been introduced through the Rankin and Bass animated film. But for the most part, it was books. And now it's very common, especially with younger fans, to find that flipped, find people who've never read the books or who were introduced to Middle-earth through the movies. How have you seen the fandom change in the last 20 years, last 20 plus years?
Well, I've actually seen the fandom remain at an interesting, constant level of vibration. You like looking at that slow motion footage of those hummingbirds. That's how I see the Tolkien fandom. There's always something going on. Even in the slow years after Rings was done and the Hobbit films had not yet come to pass.
Right.
And then the Hobbit films were done, and Amazon Studios had not yet made their announcement that they had gotten a second age story going.
Right.
And there was this little quiet periods that were kind of not as quiet as you thought it was, because we still had annual events where fans would gather for a huge picnic to celebrate the birthday of a fictional character.
Hobbit Day at Griffith Park in Los Angeles.
Yes, always the Baggins birthday bash. At the park, and other people doing that in their own towns and cities. There were huge presences of fans at the Tolkien track at Dragon Con. Before it was dissolved into the main fantasy track, which I still regret that they did that. There's, of course, San Diego Comic-Con, WonderCon, and other events around the world. The IP has floated around to gaming companies. For example, Fantasy Flight Games has had tremendous success with their tabletop Journeys in Middle-earth, which is one of my favorite things right now and always. It's a great tabletop game. There's the video games that come out for different platforms. There's always something energetic and buzzing around the Tolkien fandom.
That's true.
There's always something going on. And then every January 3rd, everywhere around the world, in every time zone, every one of us is toasting to the professor.
Yes.
We all do this. So I feel just as involved as I always have felt. And I'm quite impressed with the fact that the changes have become a little bit more, there's a splintering of voices that is only because of the different platforms in, shared electronic media, making people go crazy for clicks. So, there's that bit of weirdness where some people have discovered that going negative is useful just to get traffic temporarily. But since we don't ascribe to that, and I don't see the wisdom in that, and I never really did, to be quite honest.
That's a very short-sighted approach, that's for sure.
Yeah.
There was a tweet that came out from a speculative fiction author, and his name is Sam Sykes. Mm-hmm. And this is a reflection. It was published online back in 2017. Certainly it was a reflection on the J.J. Abrams Star Wars sequels and the turmoil and toxicity and weirdness that was happening in the Star Wars fandom at the time. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to read this out loud because it's fascinating. And you guys can follow him on Twitter at Sam Sykes, and that's Sykes. Mm-hmm. But his handle is Sam Sykes Swears. And the tweet is simply this: a title and then a numbered list of 6 items. And he says, stages of a toxic fandom. Stage 1, I love this. Stage 2, I own this.
Ah, yes.
Stage 3, I control this. Stage 4, I can't control this. Stage 5, I hate this. And the final stage 6, I must destroy this.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's been liked thousands and thousands and thousands of times and retweeted everywhere. And I mean, it's really like, think through that in your mind. I love this. I own this. I control this. I can't control this. I hate this. I must destroy this. And that's that evolutionary pattern. It's crazy. I have not seen this happen in the Lord of the Rings fandom to that 3rd degree or that 4th degree of I can't control this. Mm-hmm. The way that Star Wars fandom went pretty weird for a while, I have not seen that happen in the same way.
Yeah.
Our Lord of the Rings fandom seems to be a lot more open-handed, open-minded, and a lot more egalitarian in general. And I've never encountered people more willing to set aside their differences, like the Fellowship, and get the job done of coming together to appreciate the professor's works. And that there's a unique quality that our fandom, as ringers, we seem to have this incredible elasticity. And even though there's been an unfortunate splintering of voices in content creators, I still don't see the kind of weirdness that has been evident in other fandoms. But let's see what the future holds with our dynamic conversations being healthy and open-minded. And let's talk about, what's coming up next. There's a point where we realize we're not going to be able to do much about this except watch and observe as the next big production of an adaptation of Tolkien comes into our media boxes. Yeah. And this time it's on our little phones and in our earpods and on our 4K TV sets at home. There's interesting and healthy competition from Warner Brothers that is releasing an animated film,
right?
Because they have different theatrical distribution rights,
right?
While Amazon Studios only has television streaming rights. So that creates an interesting competition in the air between them. So now we have multiple adaptations of Tolkien coming from very different creatives, and I think that's really cool and healthy to have.
I do too, and totally different media. It's not just TV versus movie. It's the fact that the Warner Brothers one is an animated film. It's going to make it completely different.
Yeah,
indeed.
It's good to hear the comparison with Star Wars fandom because I'm also, like you, Clifford, a Star Wars fan, and some of the things that have happened in that fandom have been ugly, and I don't want to see Tolkien fandom go that way.
Yeah, disappointing is an understatement.
Yeah, very much so. And like you, I feel like we're not there, but it's kind of a wait and see. And I just hope that our better selves come out of all this. And I do hope that there's something special about Tolkien fandom that will allow our better selves to prevail. But I'm curious. I mean, you were there watching this when the last big adaptation was being made. Did you see anything similar to this during the run up to Jackson's movies? Was there? I mean, I guess it was a totally different ballgame then because there wasn't all the social media and things like that. But
everything gets louder and repeated 1,000 times now compared to then.
But did you see anything even in chat boards and, things like that was similar to what we're seeing now?
There was a small quadrant of voices that were quite grumpy. They were in the Catholic and religious blogosphere.
Okay.
And they were grumpy about Ian McKellen being an openly gay actor and him applying his craft as a thespian to what was essentially in their mind, a tale from a Catholic man that shouldn't have, any of that.
I see.
We can't have any of that. So not on my house kind of attitude. And that disappeared after the film was released. All that grumpiness, there was homophobic comments on Ain't It Cool News that were kind of out of control at the time. And there was some rumblings from a couple of the Catholic publications. And other than that, it didn't last very long.
No.
Because when the Fellowship of the Ring came out, everyone was just at that, and of course at that point in time, we were in a post 9/11 world.
Yeah,
right.
Quite suddenly, there were bigger concerns.
That's true.
And everybody put that silly bias away, and everyone was so floored by the tremendous contribution of Ian McKellen.
His performance is absolutely stellar. Far and away the best. I say the best performance in the films, but there's so many that are the best. It's just that it was flawless is the only thing I can say.
Oscar nominated.
Yeah.
He lost that award to his good friend Jim Broadbent that year for Best Supporting Actor.
Yeah.
But there was a plan. Ultimately, I was in conversations with people. There was a Best Supporting Actor plan for several of the actors for all three films. The first film was supposed to be Ian's film. The second film was supposed to be Andy Serkis's film for Gollum. And the third film was supposed to be Elijah's film. But when it came down to it, the conversation certainly switched, and people wanted the third film to be Samwise's film.
Yeah.
And they thought that the Best Supporting Actor should have gone to Mr. Sean Astin. But there was an awards campaign plan that 3 supporting actor noms and wins would be the effort for all 3 films. And Sir Ian was the only one to manifest.
Yeah.
The other 2 did not manifest, strangely enough. But that was the original plan. And they New Line Cinema pushed Andy Serkis very diligently and very ambitiously for Andy to get acknowledgement for his motion capture performance to be recognized alongside the other live action actors. And still to this day, the Board of Governors at the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences are grievously overlooking performance and stunt perperformers deserving of separate categories for Oscars. But that's just my little opinion over here.
No, I think you're absolutely right. Thank you. Serkis's performance was not just a voiceover. You do voiceovers. I've done voiceovers. I cannot imagine doing what Serkis did.
Right.
In any way, shape, or form. He inhabited that character and brought it to life in a way that, in fairness to the Academy at the time, it was so alien to even consider that sort of project. But I'd like to think that if it happened now, maybe it would be more seriously considered. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think that's something that they would look at differently with the change in technology and the fact that motion capture has become more commonplace and more certainly readily accessible?
I would hope so. But the Matt Reeves, Andy Serkis trilogy of the Planet of the Apes films, that was enough to move the needle for everyone. And the conversation is still going because of that.
It sure was.
I really hope so. I really do hope so.
I do too.
If it's going to happen, it's going to probably happen within the next decade. But it might not happen. If it happens within 5 years, I'll be even happier.
Oh, wouldn't that be great? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, how about that? The idea that Sean Astin should have gotten his Oscar nomination, that still burns me. But the one award, the one acknowledgement that most deservedly should have gone to one of the performers in the Lord of the Rings trilogy and was not given. It was a terrible, terrible oversight by the Screen Actors Guild, because when Return of the King won the big prize for the SAG Awards is Best Ensemble.
Oh, yeah.
And that Best Ensemble included everybody who got top billing in Return of the King.
Yeah.
Yep.
Unfortunately, because he had his scenes cut from the theatrical release, it is true that Sir Christopher Lee did not partake and was not one of the winners of the SAG Award for Best Ensemble.
That is rough. Because, of course, these days, I don't know anybody who thinks of the theatrical films as the way Jackson's Middle-earth was envisioned. We all have seen the extended films. We all see the extended films almost exclusively. And so you can't even imagine Return of the King without Christopher Lee.
Right.
I can't. It is odd to think that Sean Bean was included.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right, because
Yeah.
of the flashback stuff
Mm-hmm.
that took place in Osgiliath.
He had a single title card credit at the end of the theatrical release of ROTK. Christopher Lee did not. It's all about contract and negotiations between the talent and their managers and the studio, and with the union not taking an appropriate position on it. And I've been saying this very loud and proud on the air for many years now, this posthumously even.
Oh, yeah.
The union should take a stand and award Christopher Lee his award for Return of the King.
Right the wrong. We're on your side. We
Definitely.
we
brother.
back you on this. 100%.
Thank you, brother. I love you guys. I love you guys. It's really great to be here talking with you guys so conversant about these things. I love it. I really do.
Fun. We've been looking forward to this since we, asked you on. It was like, oh, this is going to be so much fun.
And that's what we want. We want this to be like, we're all hanging out at the Prancing Pony.
Right.
We're just talking,
And our listeners are here with us. They just haven't gotten a word in edgewise because we all talk too much. That's really like our every episode for that matter.
I love it.
So moving on to the last exciting topic of the day, and you knew we were going to get here and everybody's waiting to hear what you had to say. We are all excited, or maybe cautiously optimistic, or maybe terrified in some cases, but we're, the three of us, excited about the Rings of Power. And we don't want to get you in trouble. We're sure that there's some NDAs involved somewhere. So without saying anything that you're not allowed to say, what kind of engagement have you had with the team, the producers or showrunners or anybody like that at the Rings of Power? And how has that been similar to or different from the relationship that you had with Jackson's team 20 years ago?
Oh boy, the contrast is wild. Well, I love talking about great contrast because that's where good storytelling comes from contrasts. I love it. Well, to be honest, I've never signed any NDA.
Okay.
I have never signed a non-disclosure agreement with Amazon Studios, and I never will.
Okay.
Because I am an independent journalist writing independently as a volunteer on an all-volunteer website that does not monetize anything.
True.
To all the bizarros out there that continue to say that the OneRing.net is a, air quotes, a shill site, that we're always shilling for Amazon. Well, we are not, period. Mm-hmm. So you're just absurd. We don't ever make any money off of anything. Every minute of every operational day where something happens on the OneRing.net, it was because somebody put their children to bed, or somebody put aside their other work for their other career, and they put their life aside to volunteer their bloody time to write something and publish a story for the OneRing.net. Mm-hmm. If you would like to, any critics of the OneRing.net are more than welcome to write us an email at spymaster@theonering.net, and I would sit down and break bread with you, brother, talk about how much we love Tolkien, and then you can come and be a contributor and a volunteer yourself and contribute your own voice and your own articles and ideas to our community as it grows. And that is my egalitarian response to the critics.
Well said.
Which, very well said, sir.
Thank you. We're not a shell site. Never got paid by any studio. There's no back end, no payment, no nothing. And I'm not in the pockets of anybody. But I'm just here to observe and report. Right. Now, interestingly enough, the relationship with the Rings of Power is that I've had no contact with any of the writers or the showrunners or anybody at all, except for the publicity arm of Amazon Studios that invited us to go to downtown Los Angeles one day to a remote, interesting district of warehouses that looked like old paint warehouses on the far southeast of downtown LA. And there we found a forge where they were forging molten metal. They invited me to come and check out the physical props that they were using to film the video of the title release of the show.
That was fantastic.
Cool. Yeah.
And it's beautiful because it's all practical effects and it was really gorgeous to see. It was a dangerous environment for anybody who's not obeying the utmost level of safety protocols.
Right. Yeah. The heat must have been intense. Yeah.
And the incredible high-speed cameras they had that were zooming on boom arms that were computer operated that could barely get close enough to the heat without being whisked away to the other corner of the room to get away from the heat and yet capture that high-speed frame.
Which is why they were capturing it at so many frames per second along with the flowing metal to try to get that feel. But yeah, you'd have to have the camera moving exceedingly fast in order to have movement detectable when you're shooting it. What was it? 4,000 frames a second or something crazy?
Insane and fabulously insane.
Yeah.
And it was just, they were throwing money at it. As soon as I walked in, I thought to myself, Amazon is throwing so much money at this.
Oh, yes.
Because it's not even the real opening title sequence of the actual show.
No.
Right.
It's just a promotional piece. Yeah, it's a title drop. So, and you know what? Well, the effect was immediate and successful.
Yeah.
Then here we are, we're still nerding out about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Weeks later, we're still nerding out about how cool it is. So they have the potential. Obviously, this is the only contact I've had with anybody, is for the publicity people letting me see something cool like this. But otherwise, I don't know what to say except it's their game to lose.
Mm-hmm.
It is, they've got all the money in the world, throwing it at the screen. You're going to see every penny of it on screen.
Yeah, you will. One way or the other.
Like you did with this title reveal. Yes, exactly. Now, my main concern is more than skin deep. And this is how we're going to get into this conversation about all the quote-unquote controversy among fans about people of color being cast in roles in the film.
Yeah.
In what they, for right or wrong, what they believe is, a Northern European cast type of film series or TV series that has to therefore have fidelity to Tolkien's original story because of geocentric or geographic-centric concerns.
Mm-hmm.
I have nothing else to say about that except please.
Thank you. Yeah.
Middle Earth is where the framework of the story is kept in a very local area that is kind of northwestern European.
Yeah.
But the camera and the concerns of this narrative story are going to go very, very far afield.
That's right.
Yeah.
And there are elves that never, ever made the journey and never wanted to.
Right.
And perhaps they stayed and there were other marriages and other cross marriages with different peoples of Middle-earth that we've never seen because, you know what? Professor Tolkien kept his interests focused very tightly on the third age of Middle-earth mostly. And, these people at Amazon Studios are now going to make a multinational show that has to be played internationally in all of their marketplaces.
Yep.
So art and commerce are yet again making this weird dance on the dance floor.
Yeah, they
so
are.
They're going to want to sell this show to every place they can sell it, in every market they can sell it. So who cares? They're going to have all kinds of interesting people in the show. Who cares?
Yep.
My conversation about how the show could be successful or quite the failure is much more than skin deep.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, I love that.
It's a conversation about the spiritualism and the metaphysics that happens in Tolkien's legends that are way more important.
Mm-hmm.
It might be their game to lose, but if Amazon Studios wants to win the game, they absolutely have to get the writer's room and the producers and the showrunners looking at you, Patrick McKay and J.D. Payne. They have to get the metaphysics right.
Yes, they do.
That's right.
The gift of men, and it's totally different than the spiritual destiny of the elves.
Yep.
Yeah.
And this has to be so leaned into it. And my advice to the writers is unasked for, and I'm sure it's unwarranted, but my advice is you guys better lean into it. Lean into the metaphysics as hard as you can.
Yeah.
Because that is really what matters most.
That's the spirit of Tolkien. That's
Thank
what
you.
will capture the spirit of Tolkien.
Absolutely.
Thank you. That's if I have to crystallize it down to the real essence of it, I'm giving you guys a preview of an article that I'd like to write and publish on the onering.net.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the core of it. Here are the little kyber crystals down at the heart of this saber. It is about the jealousy and the mistrust and the misunderstandings of a spiritual destiny that are exploited by the bad guy.
Yes.
This is the big, chonky meat and potatoes of what Tolkien left us with.
Yeah.
And even though I'm not a Roman Catholic, even though I was raised a Southern Methodist, I deeply, deeply appreciate the spiritual underpinnings and the Catholicism, which is all interwoven deeply into the work itself.
Yes.
Yep.
If the writer's room give us any failure or something that's just pedestrian, it's going to be because they did not lean into the metaphysics of this secondary world.
Yeah.
And I'm going to stand on that hill with anybody.
I'm with you.
And I'm going to stand on that hill.
Yeah.
Every one of the writers needs to read the debate of Finrod and Andreth.
Yes.
They need to understand that
Yes.
tension.
Yes,
Even if none
exactly.
of that, of course, ever makes the show because it's first stage. But read it and understand. Read the Akallabeth. Read, you got to get your hands on this.
And you know what? I dare say they need to read, and they probably have read, the letter to Forrest Ackerman.
Oh, yeah.
About the canons of narrative art.
Oh,
And the
Yes.
core of the original, because that's what you're talking about, Clifford, is,
Yeah.
the metaphysics. That to me is the core of the original. That is the core of the Middle Earth Legendarium, is that metaphysics, that the gift to men,
the fate of men, the fate of elves,
Yeah.
how they're wrapped up in Arda. And
yeah. And if they get that right,
oh, yeah.
that's a huge piece of the puzzle.
How keenly did Sauron exploit
Oh.
their doubts and fears that had been planted by Big Daddy Morgoth many centuries before?
Yep.
I don't need to be a hardcore Roman Catholic to deeply understand and appreciate the spiritualism, which is at the clockwork behind characters' destinies.
Yes.
And the tragic decisions that some people make versus other decisions. The writers have an excellent playground to play in.
Oh, they do.
Even though they're just extrapolating from, bullet points that are in the appendices, they still have the chance to achieve excellence.
Yep.
And I'm excited about it cautiously on that regard.
Yeah.
But if they make it just another pedestrian show like The Witcher, then, whatever. Then everyone's going to have cost and product conversations.
Right.
Why did Jeff Bezos spend $1 billion if it's just going to be a pedestrian show that people find forgettable?
Yeah.
That would be the worst sin, I think.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. Is this where I mentioned Wheel of Time?
Oops. Whoa. Gauntlet thrown.
Yeah. They have to step up their game in comparison to that as far as adaptations are concerned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, this is, the conversation about Tolkien is not cosmetic. And so if somebody's going to come at me online and be like, let's have this extreme level of anger invested or negativity invested in a cosmetic trope of how you digest your fantasy, I'm not there for that.
No.
And I'm going to be more intellectually honest with you, and I'm going to break bread with you at any time you want to calm down and talk with me about how much we love Tolkien, because we are all the great beneficiaries of the hidden spiritualism that Tolkien so masterfully put in there.
Yeah.
It is a different taste than Jack Lewis giving you a lion who is absolutely a direct analog to a great spiritual prophet and a spiritual figure in one of the greatest monotheisms in the world.
Right.
Professor Tolkien decided to tread way more lightly, and because he did, so many other people from different cultures and different backgrounds can access it and feel it in a way that they can't speak about it. They just feel it.
Yep.
That's what I love. We understand the fundamentals of what's going on here.
Yep.
And I hope that they are going to succeed with their television production. I hope that anybody who decides to create a ballet or a tone poem of music, or some interesting online VR project, whatever they're going to make next, adapting from Tolkien, I hope whoever that person is or people, I hope they get the metaphysics right, because that's where I have to put my foot down and say, that's what matters to me as a Tolkien fan.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly part of, if not the central core of the original. We talk about that quote from the letter to Forrest J. Ackerman. I still can't help but hear it in Tom Shippey's voice. He did a really excellent talk way back when the Jackson films first came out, and it was on the adaptation of the Jackson films. And he quoted that comment from Tolkien about how the canons of narrative art cannot be wholly different, speaking of, a book versus a film. And that the problem with cinema, I don't think that was the word he might have just used the word film, or in other adaptations, period, was that when they forget where the core of the original lies. And that's where they end up, doing things like exaggeration or completely missing the point. If they don't get the core of the original. And you're right. If the writers miss out on the metaphysics, on the tension between the mortal men who don't even know where they're going, they just know they're leaving Arda, the tension of that versus these serially longeval elves who are frankly probably sick and tired of Arda and would like to leave Arda if they could.
Oh, no small irony there.
Yeah.
If they can't get the attention, that's going to definitely affect their ability to get to the core of the original, and it will end up, frankly, being a miss. Yeah.
I'm left wondering about the spiritual destiny of the dwarves now.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, we only know what some say, right? It's another one. We've kind of, on our show, we've adapted the some say to be that's just what it is. We believe that all the some says are accurate. So
we figure it's in there for a reason.
Yeah.
Some say it for a reason.
Right. Some say it. Yeah.
I actually dig that. That's why Professor Tolkien used that certain conceit in the way he chose his storytellers. Yes.
Exactly.
Well, this is going to be an interesting time.
Oh, it will.
Because we're looking at a post Game of Thrones world where high scale fantasy television event series has to become an event where people gather at the Chicago pub and, it becomes the viral video of the week is everybody doing a reaction video to Game of Thrones, like they did at that wonderful little Chicago pub that became so popular. The fans here are going to be wondering, are we going to have parties every week with other Tolkien friends? Here in Hollywood, we have the Scum and Villainy Cantina.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a very popular geek bar. And they might be interested in hosting, a night if people want to come and watch the show, but only if it's great, only if it ends up becoming destination television.
Or only if it's so bad it becomes mockable.
Oh, dear.
I mean, Mystery Science Theater 3000 set to Middle Earth sort of thing.
That could happen.
Let's hope not. Let's hope not.
Believe me, I hope it's not like that. I really don't want to end up spending, because we're going to be doing a second podcast, the Rings of Power wrap up, and we're going to be doing a reaction show, getting an episode out within 24 hours of release each week, hopefully. I don't want it to be, an hour of mockery. I want it to be filled with, wow, wasn't that amazing?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I want.
And everything I've seen tells me that that's what I'm going to get.
Or at least that there's a very good chance that's what we're going to get. Yeah, I think so.
I am so excited about the recent news that even though they're trying to stake out a space of their own and make their show be a distinct thing that stands a little bit differently than the 6 films that Peter Jackson has created, I'm thrilled at the recent rumors of Howard Shore floating around and hearing rumors that he greatly, greatly desires this. Like Galadriel reaching her hand,
That's exactly
reaching her hand into the frame.
He desired this.
So, it is really exciting.
Now, I didn't see that news. Folks, we're recording this on April 13th. I know you'll be listening to this actually a couple of weeks from now on April 24th. You're saying that this was news that you released yesterday, April 12th?
Yes, we had the 23rd anniversary of the OneRing.net on Monday the 11th, and then on our Tuesday broadcast on the 12th, we announced that as a rumor, an unconfirmed rumor, that Howard Shore is in London and has booked rooms to stay for 3 weeks. And what's in London? The Abbey Road Studios.
Yeah.
Right.
And now there's a rumor in the air that he's there to work on something, and we don't know what.
Well.
And I'm excited. I'm excited.
Too.
Oh, me too. Yeah, that's great.
Well, we've touched a little bit about on different things that we're excited about, as well as different things we're nervous about. If you could name one thing, what's the one thing you're most looking forward to about the show?
I'm looking forward to Celebrimbor having a relationship with Anatar about learning ringcraft and not realizing that he's being suckered into the biggest scam of Middle-earth history.
Yeah.
There is a great tragic story arc with Celebrimbor.
Oh, there is.
I'm also delighted that there's ongoing rumors of maybe one blue wizard or maybe 2 blue wizards appearing in the series. To have that happen, it would be so interesting.
Wouldn't it?
Because Professor Tolkien took a late stage second approach to reconsidering the roles of Alatar and Palando, and changed their names to Romastamo and help me.
I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, but but you're right. He did change them.
Yes, he did change their names. Anyways, it'll come to us. I'll have to look it up real quick. The idea of having blue wizards run around past the Red Mountains, the Orocarni, to the far, far eastern lands, and to see what kind of interesting relationships they have with the men and the people and the tribes and the cultures of the East, and trying to put out some of the dark seeds that Morgoth had planted there so many millennia before. I'm really intrigued in exploring the East with the Blue Wizards as much as I'm intrigued by Celebrimbor getting duped by the worst Avon lady coming to knock on his door. The worst Avon lady comes and knocks on your door and says, look what I've got. Look what I've got to sell you.
Yep. Oh, man.
By the way, it was Moranetar.
Romestamo
and Moranetar.
Yes, with the H. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Moranetar and Romestamo.
Right. That would be super cool.
Wouldn't it?
So those are the top two things of interest to me, because everybody felt really, really strong feelings about the Red Wedding. When Celebrimbor has his carcass stuck up on a pole and is dragged around the remains of the city of Ost-in-Ithil. When that happens, everyone's going to have strong feelings about that.
Yeah,
it's going to be hardcore.
Yeah.
Cover the kids' eyes.
We've sort of kind of made that moment into a little bit of a meme on our show. We keep talking about, the pincushion of Celebrimbor, and we laugh and say it's too soon. But boy, I'm telling you what, that's going to go away if they actually we're retiring that joke forever. If they actually put that on screen, because that will be absolutely gutting. Yeah.
They're gonna play it for real. It'll be Red Wedding level of things that they're going to do with these characters. Oh. But I forget to mention the third thing that I'm most interested in seeing, probably at the end of season 5, is the incredible destruction of Numenor.
Yes,
and the reshaping of the world.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
That's going to be great.
That's where your $1 billion ought to go.
All the flat earthers going, well, they lost me there.
Funny.
I love it.
Funny. Yeah. So, and it's funny you should mention the great Tolkien scholar Tom Shippey, because I remember a wonderful Dragon Con experience where we were drinking and dining at the sports bar upstairs after the convention hall had closed for the day, and he was a little bit nervous about singing the Eagles because it was karaoke night, and I did my best to encourage him. He said, Mr. Broadway, if you would be a gentleman and if you would come and accompany me, then I'll do it. So I said, yes, okay, I'll agree to do that. So one of my greatest memories ever with a Tolkien scholar was not sitting in some stuffy library in Oxford where we were debating the maps or something. And I have done that. But my greatest moment with a Tolkien scholar was in a sports bar above Dragon Con singing an Eagles song. And the song was Lion Eyes.
Oh, my goodness.
Because, Tom Shippey singing There Ain't No Way to Hide Your Lion Eyes was the best moment of my nerd life.
That's amazing.
The best.
That is amazing.
I'll never forget
if
it.
I see him in another Oxamute, I am buying a karaoke machine.
Because we have had the pleasure of spending time with him in person, but not like that, man. That's amazing.
He is such a lovely, lovely human being.
He is, truly. He is. Such a joy to have him on the show and then to meet him in person in Birmingham. It was just a highlight. Wow.
I told you guys I had a good story to tell about.
That was worth it. That was worth it.
Absolutely worth the wait, sir.
Honestly, I can't think of a better way to end this episode. What do you think, Alan?
No, we're not topping that. No.
So that was amazing. Clifford, this has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. This has been great.
I am so grateful for getting a chance to tell my story as it is reflected and interwoven with the larger story of the OneRing.net. And I really appreciate you guys, because 23 years later, I can't believe we're still here.
Yeah.
But here we are. And it's, you know what? You better hold on to your butts. It's going to be a long ride.
Yes, it will.
I'm really glad we're in this ride together with you guys and everybody else in the community. So many great people. Yeah. Thank you again for letting me have a chance to come and express myself. And you're incredibly generous, guys. Thank you for the time.
And Clifford, before we go, could you go ahead and let folks know where they can find you, how they can follow you on social media and things?
Of course, yes. I'm fairly playful on Twitter and Instagram, and you can find me there at QuickBeam2000. I don't know why, but I'm one of those guys who actually stuck a 2000 at the end of everything.
I survived the great millennial change.
Yes, I did. I did that a lot. So it's on almost every one of my emails.
Oh, that's
it's ridiculous. Brilliant. But it's really quite funny. Quick Beam 2000. And I'm on Instagram and Twitter. And as a wedding minister, if there's anybody out there who's getting married, I would love to deliver a really great Lord of the Rings themed wedding. I do it all the time.
Awesome.
It'd be a pleasure.
That would be fantastic.
Thanks again, guys.
And your AOL handle? No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Oh, yeah, you know. What about Sierra Online? You got one of those too while we were at it?
That's funny. I did. You guys are so funny.
We're of a certain age, sir. We're of a certain age.
We remember those days.
I'm dating myself.
Which we do every week, man. Every week. We're pulling out quotes from, Ferris Bueller's Day Off or some 80s pop hit or whatever. People are always like, man, those old guys over on the Prancing Pony podcast.
When I start talking like Max Headroom, then watch out. Watch out, guys.
Excellent.
We're like Captain America. I understand that reference.
I do.
Great.
Well, thanks again.
Thank you.
And folks, that does wrap it up for another episode of the Prancing Pony podcast. But please be sure to join us again next week when we get back to the text with the first half of Journey to the Crossroads.
It is one of my absolute favorite chapters of the book, and I can't wait to get into it.
The beautiful flowers on the head of the statue.
Oh, the king has got a crown again. Yes.
It was so nice for Peter to restore that into the extended edition of the film because it's just exquisite. The symbolism, Tolkien at his lyrical best.
Yes.
It's really great stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you're right. Jackson did such a great job with it in the extended edition.
So many of those extended edition moments just stand out to me, but that really is one of them. I mean, stuff that just really spoke to us as the hardcore book fans.
Yeah.
It felt like fan service for those of us who've been reading the books every year forever.
But it is the best example of fan service done right.
Oh, yeah.
For the right reasons.
Absolutely the right reasons,
and, oh my gosh, I can't get enough of Christopher Lee's ultimate segment in Return of the King and his direct from the book dialogue fight with Bernard Hill.
Yes.
Gibbets and Crows. Yeah.
Yes. Wonderful.
I'm melting. I am melting right now. I love it.
Awesome.
I love it.
Fantastic.
Thank you, guys. You're the best. Thank you again.
Thank you again, Clifford.
Thank you, Clifford. We really appreciate it.
But folks, before we go, we also want to thank the team that helps make the show better. That's our research assistants, as well as our Barliman, Becca Davis, producer Jordan Rennells, social media manager Casey Hilsey, event and Patreon community coordinator Katie McKenna, and website guru Phil Dean.
And speaking of the website, please be sure to visit us there at theprancingponypodcast.com. We've got show notes, we've got hilarious outtakes, Prancing Pony ponderings, and of course our online storefront where you can get all sorts of PPP merch.
And definitely check out our library page. You know we love the books here at the Prancing Pony Podcast, and we've provided links for you to get nearly every book we mention on the show. And we do get a few pennies from the purchases you make there, so thank you.
Indeed. And now we want to thank some more really important people. These would be our patrons at the Kierdan's contribution tier. I'm going to start with DeMay in Alaska, James in Virginia, Tamsin in Minnesota, Chad in Texas, Lance in New Jersey, Paul in Colorado, Jerry in Texas, Bruce in California, Mario in Utah, Seth in Texas, B in California, Joseph in Texas, Kathy from North Carolina, Lori from Washington, and Carlos in California.
And there's also Brian from the UK, Ned from Connecticut, Jerry from Washington, Joe in Washington, Erwin from the Netherlands, Lise in Switzerland, Dylan in Australia, Ben in Minnesota, Anthony in Texas, Dorwin in Michigan, Karen in the UK, Zaksu in Illinois, Jim in Maryland, Brian in Texas, and Sarah in New Jersey. Thank you all so very much for your support.
Yes.
And folks, please be sure you don't miss any episodes of the Prancing Pony Podcast. Subscribe to the show through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or whatever your favorite podcast app is.
That's right. But one last thing as always, don't forget to send your thoughts, comments, and most of all, your favorite moments from the last 20 plus years of the OneRing.net to Barliman at theprancingponypodcast.com. And if you want a chance to have your actual voice heard, well, you can send us audio of you asking us your question by visiting podinbox.com/prancingponypod and record your question for us.
Just please make sure to still send the question to Barliman for us. Just helps with record keeping.
It does.
Now, Barliman's a lot more reliable than he used to be, but we do get a lot of mail, and we'll get to you as soon as we can. And your question or comment may be featured on a future episode.
As always, this has been far too short a time to spend among such excellent and admirable listeners and guests. But until next time.
Farewell, friends.